Hello there everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games. Today we are talking about whether or not the Nintendo Switch can beat the PS2 and become the best-selling console of all time. Let's get into it. Alrighty folks, good Wednesday morning if you're watching this on a Wednesday morning. Hopefully there's some news today actually and you're watching this on a Thursday morning because I'll have to delay the video because hopefully there will be some Nintendo news this week. But today I wanted to talk about, can the Nintendo Switch become the best-selling console of all time? Because we are at a point where the Switch is getting very close, and I actually think it would be kind of almost surprising if it actually doesn't end up surpassing the PS2, which, to say that's surprising is crazy because, you know, years ago, you would have never thought, oh, the Switch is going to sell better than the PS2, which only sold so well because it was a freaking DVD player, and it was also very cheap. But here's the rundown, right? The Switch is currently, as of September 30th, I believe, at about 145.84 million units sold. The PS2 lifetime sales, which, reminder, the PS2 was sold for, like, what, 13, 14 years? Because even in, like, other territories, they were selling it in, like, 2013, 2014. The PS2 is around 155 to 160 million. Now, that number might be a little bit weird. I believe maybe it's in the middle, like 158, because initially they had reported back in 2013 it was at 155, but then I think earlier this year or last, Jim Ryan said that it was about at 160 million. So let's just say it's at 160 million. That is the top number. Can the Nintendo Switch sell 15 more million units to become the best-selling console of all time? Well, right now, Nintendo is currently forecasting 13.5 million this fiscal year, so ending March 31st, 2025. If they hit that, it'll be at about 155 million. At that point, it will have surpassed the Nintendo DS, becoming the best-selling Nintendo console ever. And usually, the Switch sells best during the holiday period, so based on past years, it should be able to do around, let's say, 4 to 6 million, I would say on the higher end, like 5.5 million maybe, from October 1st to December 30th. They just released the new Hyrule Edition Switch Lite. They're doing their more aggressive bundling this year with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and the OLED bundles, but also in other regions there are the bundles for like New Horizons and Switch Sports that include an entire year now of Nintendo Switch Online. So they're doing the most aggressive bundling they've ever done this year. And I think it'll be a pretty good holiday season for them, even though sales, I would say, for some games are coming in seemingly a little softer, right? Like Echoes of Wisdom, even like Paper Mario and Luigi's Mansion 2 and Princess Peach Showtime, like software sales are a little bit softer this year, I think, than even I expected. However, hardware sales are still doing solid, right? So we'll really have to wait and see how many units it sells this Christmas to determine if they'll be able to do it. Now, the Switch will likely be on store shelves for at least probably 2-3 more years now. Let's say the Switch 2 comes out in early 2025, like a lot of people are expecting. You will still have the Switch on store shelves, holiday 2025, and probably even holiday 2026. But they won't be the, primary focus. They won't be selling like hotcakes anymore like they currently are. So this is kind of like the final big holiday season of the Nintendo Switch. So if they want to pass PS2, this is the holiday season. They need to be aggressive. They need to really sell as many units as possible. Like I said, it'll keep selling for months, maybe even years, but it's going to just start dropping off rapidly as the Switch 2 does get announced and as it does release, because people will start saying like, okay, well, I might as well save my money for a Switch 2, right? What's especially crazy about the Nintendo Switch is that it looks like they might be able to accomplish this insane number, this insane goal of beating the PS2 without ever dropping the price of the system. So what I'm talking about right now, like we're talking if Nintendo doesn't even drop the price of the system, and I still think they will probably be able to do it. If they hit their goal and hit around 155 by March 31st, that would mean they would only need to sell 5 more million units. Let's say the Switch 2 even comes out in March. They only need to sell 5 more million units after the Switch 2 releases. The Switch Lite is $200. There will still be a lot of parents, even in holiday 2025, that Christmas, buying their kids a Switch Lite with whatever games come out next year. I mean, we still don't know what's coming out next year. There's a Pokemon game, actually, coming out next year. So at that point, I will be shocked if they don't, hit their goal. Especially when you look at the charts for like previous Nintendo consoles, looking at 3DS here, look how many units the 3DS sold in fiscal year 2018. So that would be after the Switch came out. The 3DS still managed to sell 6.4 million units. There was still software releasing on 3DS, but it was all remakes and remasters. But because it had Pokemon, because it had a huge back library of games, and because it was so much cheaper than the Nintendo Switch, it was still a great option as a cheap gaming device when the Switch was still at $300. So if the 3DS could do 6.4 million after the Switch came out, I would be shocked if the Switch can't do 5 million after the Switch 2 comes out, especially since there is a new Pokemon game releasing next year. But let's say the Switch can't do it. Let's say they can't reach 160 million at the current price point of the Switch. Maybe the sales start declining rapidly as we enter 2025. You know what Nintendo could do? They could do a price drop. They have not dropped the price of the Switch at all. Functionally, they kind of have because, you know, the Switch Lite is $200. That is a cheaper model of the Switch, so you have a cheaper entry point than you did back in 2017. But right now, there's no cheaper way than that. The cheapest way to get a Switch is $200 retail. So if Nintendo wants to achieve this crown, if they want to become the best-selling console of all time, even though I think they can probably do it without a price drop, you know, keep doing these bundles with games and Switch Online to kind of spruce up the value of the you know, bundle. Even if they can't do it just as they are right now, all they would need to do is drop the price of the Switch Lite to like $150 and it's over. It's a done deal. Drop the price of the regular Switch to $250, drop the price of the OLED down to $300. They will hit that 160 million goal in no time, especially if there is more software next year that we don't know about. And I'm sure there is, right? Like, just right now, we already know, okay, Donkey Kong coming out in January, whatever, right? Like, that's not going to move units. But you know what will move units? Pokemon Legends EA. You know what will move units? If they do a special edition Pokemon Legends EA console or a special edition Metroid Prime 4 OLED bundle, right? These are things that will get people to double dip and also just buy in on the Switch ecosystem. Even with the Switch 2 being announced at that point, or maybe even being released, people would still want to buy a special edition Metroid Prime OLED, right? So in my opinion, yes, I think the Switch will pass the PS2. I think it will probably do it by, let's say, March 2026 when they do their year-end financial meeting for that. At that point, the Switch will probably start being kind of phased out. You won't be seeing it in stores all the time anymore. Switch 2 will have been out for almost a year, hopefully, at that point. So they will start phasing things out. But I think by March 2026, you will see a thing from Nintendo being like, the Switch has outsold the PS2, or the Switch has become the best-selling console. They probably won't mention PS2 in the press release or whatever, right? But I think that will happen, even without a price drop, just because Nintendo fans are crazy. I'm crazy. When they do a Legends EA Switch OLED, I'm gonna buy it. When they do a special edition Legends EA, you know, Switch Lite or Switch OLED, whatever it is, there will be so many people that, you know, double dip, and that's assuming there are no other major games next year that could potentially move some units. I mean, even something like a Fire Emblem remake, yeah, it's not gonna move a lot of units, but there will probably be a couple people that are like, oh, I want to play that. And frankly, even if the Nintendo Switch stops selling right now, they're at 145 million units, that is the final total number. Let's say that hypothetical exists, right? I still think what Nintendo has done with the Switch is more impressive than even the DS or the PS2. The DS was very cheap hardware by the end of its life cycle, and the PS2 was also very cheap hardware by the end of its life cycle, and it was a DVD player. People bought the PS2 as a DVD player. That's why my mom bought one. We had it as a DVD player. I got the added benefit of it being a game console, but it was the cheapest way to buy a DVD player. The Switch is a dedicated handheld gaming device. So the fact that it has been able to hit 145 million units when the, you know, lowest entry model is $200, and that's not even the most popular model, right? The most popular is still the OG Switch. The fact that Nintendo has been able to hit such a high number with this console shows that, first of all, like, console, like, core gaming is still very much alive and very, very healthy. It also just shows that the Switch is inherently a very good idea. I mean, with the Switch, we started seeing, you know, more handhelds, more hardcore handhelds from like Steam Deck and the ROG Ally and all these different things. I think there's rumors of an Xbox handheld coming out. People love their handhelds. People love their Switch. Even if there are a lot of people that play it docked only, the flexibility of being able to take games on the go, I think is such a great selling point that, you know, I've talked about this in the past. If the Switch 2 has no other gimmick beyond just being the Switch 2 more powerful, right? I will be kind of surprised because Nintendo is just so known for doing their gimmicks. But on the other hand, why fix what isn't broken? The Switch is such a good idea. We kind of take it for granted now, but back in like 2015, we really would have never thought that Nintendo would be able to pull something like this off. A hardware that, yeah, it's a little underpowered at this point, right? Maybe very underpowered, depending on who you ask. But we never would have thought that they'd be able to hit with this awesome hardware that everybody loves and deliver, you know, at this point, almost 8 full years of just banger software. There are so many great games on the Nintendo Switch, not even just from first party. I mean, I think it's safe to say that the Switch by far has the best third-party supports of any Nintendo console at this point. I mean, we have every mainline Final Fantasy, all these other JRPGs, even more Western stuff. You know, they're very late ports that don't run great compared to the PS4, but like Witcher and Skyrim and all these things, like, having all this stuff on a Nintendo platform, it is something that during the Wii U era felt impossible to even dream about. And now here we are with this great console, with this great library of games, and it has sold almost as much as the PS2, which is just unthinkable, or at least it was unthinkable back then. I remember when the Switch was announced, I said in a video that I made back then, you know, 16-year-old Bo, I was like, you know, I think this is going to do really well. Like, I was like, yeah, I was very, you know, optimistic for the future of Nintendo. I think I said it'd be great if it could pass Wii, which sold about 100 million units. But now we're talking about the Switch selling, you know, almost 50% more than that. And to be fair, I think without COVID, the Switch probably would have already, you know, kind of tapped out at sales realistically, right? Like, I think COVID and Animal Crossing New Horizons really inflated the life cycle of this console. Had that not happened, I do believe we probably would have seen the Switch 2 by now. Like, we probably would already have it in our hands because COVID really did prolong things and extend the life cycle where, you know, in 2020, all Nintendo released was New Horizons, 3D All-Stars, and Hyrule Warriors. Oh, and Paper Mario. Can't forget Paper Mario. But, like, it was a very empty year because the world was locked down. They knew they could get away with not releasing that many games, and, you know, the games were selling incredibly well. So COVID definitely prolonged things to the point where now we have an 8, maybe even 9-year life cycle for this console. And yeah, to the greater point, though, I really do think the Switch will be able to sell better than the PS2 by the time all is said and done. Frankly, I don't really think there's even much question about it. I guess for me, the question is, can they do it without a price drop? And even then, I think the answer is still almost certainly yes. But if they think they can't do it, I believe Nintendo, even though it doesn't like really matter if they hit that number. Like, it's not going to change the way people perceive the company if they have the best-selling, you know, console on the market. But it is a very serious record. It is a very serious bragging rights. So while I don't think that Nintendo actually like delayed the Switch 2 just so they could hit this milestone, like I've seen some people comment that before, they definitely didn't do that. At the same time, I'm sure they will be very, very happy to reach this milestone. And if it means dropping the price of the Switch Lite by like $30, I'm sure they'll do it. Or at the very least, you know, these more aggressive bundles, which we're seeing more of now that, you know, include the full 12 years of Switch Online. I think even with the expansion pack, which is, what? I think that's a full $50 maybe for the full year of Switch Online with the expansion pack, because I bought the Hyrule Edition Switch Lite and that came with a full year. So they're definitely getting more aggressive. And then, like I said, all they need to do is like a Legends EA, a Metroid Prime 4 bundle next year, and those will sell very well to Nintendo collectors and all that. So yeah, I really think they will be able to hit that 160 million units. I don't know how much more than that they'll do. Like, I don't think the Switch will ever pass 170. I don't think that's going to happen unless it stays on the market for another, you know, 3-4 years. But, you know, 2 more years, even after Switch 2 comes out, yeah, it's doing that last 15 million it needs for sure. So that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you think the Switch will pass the PS2? Do you think Nintendo has it in them to pass 160 million units sold for the Nintendo Switch? I would love to hear your thoughts. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch news, reviews, discussions, all that fun stuff. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames, and subscribe to my other channel at It's Amiibo. That channel has been growing like crazy. Super appreciate the support. But until next time, folks, peace.